Hello and welcome to the video. This is finally my flight review of this thing here, the Reptile Dragon 2. Now again, I need to say a massive thank you to those of you that got in touch with me in the last video where I was talking about how I was going to set this up. Loads of fantastic information. It appears that early versions had a more aggressive prop with a larger pitch, and I was initially going to build it with a lithium ion battery, and some of you got in touch and said, no, don't do that, use LiPo batteries. So I've actually been flying this with a 5000 milliamp hour 4S LiPo rather than a 4S 2P lithium ion, and it is a lot better with that. So thank you to those of you that got in touch. I'm going to go through all the stuff, standard 5-star ratings, but before I do that, let me go through a couple of the key things in here. All up weight of this, again, as I mentioned before, the replacement battery is almost exactly the same weight. It's just under 1.3 kilograms, which when I had that kind of weight in the ZOHD Altus, felt pretty hefty to me. In this, with these massive wings, it handles that without a problem at all, and it's very easy to hand launch as well. I didn't even feel like I had to put my grip tape on the side of the body. Motors on this are a 2207 1750 kV with a 7x4 inch tri-bladed prop. I think that's different from some of the earlier versions. So if you've seen videos from a while ago, this is how it's shipping now. And these 7x4 tri-bladed props are actually a nice all-round selection for it. Very good at static thrust, makes hand launching and recoveries for go-arounds an awful lot easier. Nice and quiet and nice and efficient. If you ever hear a prop that isn't making a lot of noise but working well, that usually is one that's going to be efficient. See my motor and prop series for why that is. However, it isn't about high speed, but you know, this girl will still get a turn of speed if you open the throttle wide. In terms of throws, well, I had to guess because surprise, surprise, there's no throws on the manual. Come on, Reptile. 12 to 15 millimeters for the ailerons, about the same for the elevator, and I dialed down the rudder. It looked too aggressive to me. Rudder authority isn't fantastic, so I would actually keep the rudder moving really aggressively, maybe up to 25 millimeters, just to get some yaw authority. I had a little bit of yaw wag on my flight, and unfortunately the rudder there isn't enough authority to move it around. The control surface back there isn't particularly big. It does have a nice angle because of the distance from the center of lift and center of gravity all the way back, but it just needs to have a little bit more bite on the air. So I would just leave it at an aggressive setting if you want to do coordinated turns. Central gravity is set up at where it is under the wing. There is a molded little spot here, and I'm flying it on that. That seems to work really well. It is a little bit sensitive to altitude on throttle. If you throttle up, you'll find that it'll start to rise. When you drop the throttle back, it'll start to sink. So I would definitely trim it in your cruise throttle, and we'll get to what that is for me in a moment. Like the fact that the wings come off, these little rotating things that kind of unscrew the wings, in my opinion, work really well, but are very, very fiddly. Really disappointed that they didn't make the tail nice and easy to remove as well, particularly as they provide you with both. I seem determined in this video to stick myself in the face or the shoulder with this tri-bladed prop, but I'm going to stick with it. Last thing to talk about before we get into the scores is the iNav setup, standard iNav stuff. See my iNav for Beginners series. Running iNav 7.1.2 in this with walk snail in the nose, as I showed last time. Walk snail unit is staying lovely and cool, so are the motors, even in combined flying. I would set the launch, the idle throttle, if you're going to use auto launch, for about 1600. At that point you can feel it kind of tugging on your hand ready to throw, and I set it for 1800 for the actual throttle position to launch it into the air. And as you'll see in a moment, that's more than enough. You don't need 100% throttle. This is very floaty even with the 1.3 kilogram weight. So let's go through the scores. Let's see what it actually scored as. Slow speeds, let's start here. Well, the nice thing about this is it's very capable of picking up speed quickly, and with those huge wings do make it nice and floaty. So this can go below 20 miles an hour, even with 1.3 kilogram weight, which makes it nice and easy for gentle approaches. And it's also good at go-arounds because of that very good static thrust. It means that you can launch it really easily, but also if you decide to blip the throttle, if you want to do a go-around because the approach isn't great for your landing, it will very quickly not only pick up speed, but gain a little bit of altitude as well. In terms of high speeds, well, this again surprised me. I thought it would be a little bit of a slow coach, but it's not. At full speed, it'll do just touching 80 miles an hour, full throttle with the wind behind it. 80 miles an hour will pull about 53 amps with the motor and props that I've got here, which is why I'm pleased I'm using a lithium polymer battery rather than lithium ion, because lithium ion would be freaking out if I tried to pull 53 amps out of it. But that does speak to how efficient this thing is. Efficiency, let's talk about that. This gets 5-star. It can absolutely fly for about 30 minutes. It's a really great cruiser. I found that a nice speed was about 30 miles an hour, which was roughly 30% throttle, and it was pulling just over 5 amps, and it'll sit there for all the time that I've got the battery running at that kind of speed. You can drop it and get a little bit of less speed. The turns are very neutral. You're not having to put lots of elevator in to stop the nose from dropping. I found that 1000 milliamp hours was used in mixed flying in just over 8 minutes. So with the 5000 milliamp hour battery that I've got here, that gives me a total flight time in mixed flying of 31 minutes. However, I could probably push that up to more like 40 if I was being a lot more gentle with the throttle and focusing on cruising. iNav reports maximum power of flying this of 788 watts, maximum current at 100% throttle of 53.1 amps, and efficiency is working out at just over 200 milliamp hours per mile. That's, again, mixed flying. So that would give me a total distance available on this battery of just under 20 miles. In terms of noise, this is super duper. Even though it's big and heavy, you can't hear it unless it's right close to you. Once it gets 50 meters away, you can't hear the thing at all. It is incredibly quiet. Interesting that they've gone to 3-bladed props rather than 2-bladed. 2-bladed props would add another level of efficiency. And there is a space on here to have a slightly wider prop, but I'm guessing that's to help avoid ground strikes because the props do protrude just a little bit under the body, but not enough to cause a problem. Toughness, well, toughness so far is getting 4.5 stars. It's surviving most crashes with little damage. It needs a few more crashes to check, but because this is so well mannered and so beautiful to fly, it's very tricky to crash. Because let's face it, crashing tends to only be when you're launching and landing. Launchings are easy and so are landings too. So far it's behaving itself and I've not really had a chance to check it. Acrobatics, it is a 3-star here. With the throws that I've got, you could absolutely increase the throws and make it all acrobatic, but this is a nice median. Again, the only thing I would do from the setup that we talked about at the beginning, I would increase the throws for the rudder. You need a lot of throw. The rudder authority is a little bit lackluster with the kind of throws that I initially started out, so I would ramp that up to kind of 20-25 millimeters to get any kind of authority with those big 2 tractors, motor and prop setups out there in the wings. Room inside, it gets an almost perfect 5 stars, 4.5 stars for this. There's loads of options for antenna mounts in the tail and lots of space in the tail too if you want to use it. However, that's going to put weight way behind your central gravity that you're going to have to offset in the nose. I would have loved a removable nose here. That would have been nice. That would have allowed us for different options. The nose as it is in here, as you can see from the image, there is a little bit of view from the edge of the foam that's catching on the camera. To be honest, once you're flying, you kind of forget that that's there. So there's a couple of things that could have been improved, and by having some kind of removable nose, it would have allowed us to tweak those things easier because it is kind of buried away at the front. So getting to places with an X-Acto to tweak stuff is quite tricky. Again, see my Thingiverse link below if you want to use the same HD FPV mount that I designed for this that's actually working very well. Travel and breakdown gets a 4 stars. It breaks down into smaller parts with some basic tools. As I said, sadly the tail isn't removable without a hex driver and 4 screw removal. I would have loved to see some kind of catch or snap style connection for that tail, but that would have made it a lot more versatile and easier to move around. It does fit in my car, but it has to go in the passenger footwell. So in summary, if you've been thinking about getting one of these, I would say go for it. This is a fantastic FPV plane, nice and easy to launch, beautiful fly, impeccable manners, able to fly at 80 miles an hour, able to fly down to 20 miles an hour. This is one that's going to get flown quite a lot here. It would have been flown more if we'd have had some easy snap-on way, and maybe I'm going to have a look at seeing if there's a way I can adapt the tails to make that happen. But thank you to everyone that recommended this to me. You are absolutely right. I do love it. Thank you for watching my video. Check out the playlist, and adding Pedantry 60 to your search terms will help you find my content. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. You can support the time I spend here answering questions and helping others by using the links in the video description.